again, Gooners. No theme music for how many times running is this? I'm not sure, but quite a few times running. Why no theme music? Well, that's a big question. Music going on the pitch, of course. Arsenal winning yet again. Can't get sick of that. I always say to Glasgow Rangers and Celtic fans, don't you get sick of winning everything? Doesn't it get boring? But obviously not. Arsenal obviously haven't won anything yet. They deserve something, though. When you think about how they played against Bournemouth, unfortunately, Manchester City will have something to say, at the very least, about where the title's going this season. Will it be London or Manchester? It's good to have the points in the bag. That's what I always think. Anyway, I'll talk in more detail about the Bournemouth game, Spurs game, maybe even the Chelsea game. Can't remember if I did that before, but yeah, it's always good to talk about something twice when it gave us such a feel good factor. Anyway, coming up later are some retro Arsenal questions. Okay, so maybe I'll give you the questions now, and then that gives you time to ponder the answers. Okay, so these are the questions. We're going back to a time when Arsenal won something, had a bit of silverware in the cabinet, quite a lot actually. The double winning season of 1970-71. So, first question, really easy. Who was the manager? The second question, who was Arsenal's top scorer? It's not as easy as you might think. What was the aggregate score in the Intercities Fairs Cup final of 1970? Not to be confused with the following season, but sort of links, I suppose. So what was the aggregate score in that final? And which team did Arsenal defeat in the FA Cup final of 71 to get the domestic double? How many goals did Arsenal score in total during that league campaign of 70-71? Who scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final? Pretty easy. This is ridiculously easy. In which round of the FA Cup did Arsenal face Liverpool in 1971? Which player won the Football Writers Footballer of the Year award for 1970-71? Who did Arsenal defeat? It's kind of cheap because it's not the same season, really. Who did Arsenal defeat in the semi-finals of the Intercities Fairs Cup in 1970 en route to winning it? And another ridiculously easy one. What was the name of the stadium where Arsenal used to play their home games in 1970-71? Which player was captain during the double winning season of that same campaign? I didn't check this one, but I'm guessing it's right. What was the final score when Arsenal played Leeds in the league in that season? Easy to guess, but I'm not sure it's the right answer. I'd have to check later. Who was the goalkeeper? Not the reserve goalkeeper for Arsenal during 70-71. Pretty famous. Which player made the most appearances in all competitions? Another very famous player of that era. How many clean sheets did Arsenal keep during the league in that particular season? I'll give you a clue. It's a lot. Which club did Arsenal defeat in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup in 71? I didn't check that. I don't know if it's altogether correct, so I better double check that. Let's change that. Let's say semi-finals, not quarterfinals, because I don't actually know the answer to the quarterfinals. What was the name of the trophy that Arsenal won? No, I'm not asking you that. It's just ridiculous. Oh, sorry. What's the Fairs Cup now known as? How about that? That's fairer. Who scored the first goal in the FA Cup final of 71? And what was the total attendance in that game? So 20 questions for you to mull over. And now let's get back to the present. Okay, so last game, 3-0 victory over Bournemouth. Puts the pressure on Manchester City to some extent. What was their response to beat Wolves 5-1? I've got to say it is panning out pretty much as I expected. Obviously, a little bit better because I thought Arsenal would draw at Spurs, but they got a narrow win. We'll come to that later. But now it's actually all about Spurs, really, because if Spurs can take points off City and Arsenal get 3 points at Old Trafford, easier said than done, then it's Arsenal's. It should be Arsenal's league, really. It would just be Everton standing in the way, and they're pretty safe. So what's to worry about, really? Obviously, any game is a potential banana skin. The other game City have got Fulham away. Interestingly, in FPL, the Fantasy Premier League, they've got. I think they've rated Fulham away as quite a difficult match. I'm not so sure it's that difficult. Leno's in goal. Leno could do Arsenal a favour, being an ex-gunner himself or ex-gooner. And then West Ham, they've got West Ham on the final day of the season. And West Ham have the potential to upset City. I don't think they will, but they've got Bowen up front, who's lethal. They could do it. Antonio's not bad, so they've got a few good players. West Ham. I don't expect them to get anything away at City though. So really, it's those away games, Fulham and Spurs away in London. So they could throw the title away in London, but it's Arsenal much better position in a way. Some people say no because it's not in Arsenal's hands, but when you got the points in the bag, it's much more reassuring because you can see the nerves are getting to the players. When you saw the number of shots that were blazed over the bar, Arsenal had all the possession against Bournemouth, but didn't really capitalise until Saka scored that penalty. It was very cool when he stepped up to take it. To be honest, when Havertz went down in the area, I personally wouldn't have given that as a penalty. I didn't think it was foul. Even when I watched the replays, I didn't think it was a foul. His momentum took him into the player, and in my opinion, that wasn't quite enough. I think there was a penalty later, which wasn't given. Somebody handballed it, but the referee waved play on. And I don't recall VAR even looking at it. But we can't moan about VAR for once because this time it played in Arsenal's favour. Of course, Trossard gets the second goal, brilliantly set up by Rice, who had an incredibly good game, marauding all over the pitch, totally dominating the midfield. So, and Rice, who else? I like saying who else. Rice finished the game off with a low shot between the keeper's legs. It was set up by Jesus, and Jesus doesn't really look in top form to me. He came on as a substitute, so getting an assist would be good for his confidence. But I'd love to see Jesus get a goal. Obviously, away at Old Trafford would be nice. So yeah, that's the next game. Arsenal can win there. Man U are not bad. We all know that. On a good day, they're. Well, I don't think on a good day they're better than Arsenal. To tell the truth, I don't think so. But they have got players that can hurt Arsenal. It's just down to them really, as well as Arsenal need to put up a solid performance and just wait for Man U to slip up. Their keeper's sort of a bit hit and miss. Sometimes brilliant, sometimes not so good. Obviously, they've got Maguire at the back, not the most cultivated footballer in the world, even though very expensive. I don't know what I think about him. He can get a goal at a set piece. It might be harder for Arsenal to score at set pieces, given if he's going to play Maguire. He's not everybody's favourite, but I think you can't dispute he's good in the air. And who have United got going forward? Well, they've got quite a lot of firepower too. So it's just whether or not those players are going to be at the races. We just don't know at this stage. So yeah, we all hope, of course, for an Arsenal victory. I think when I made my predictions, I put it down as a draw, so more drop points. But the Spurs result I got wrong, so I'll come to that now. When Arsenal race into a 3-goal lead, I just couldn't believe it. The amount of time that Raya had gone without conceding is 10 hours when it comes to away game clean sheets. It's quite an incredible record. But then Raya, just like Arsenal have done in the past, shot himself in the foot, too casual at the back, and that run ended. Of course, later on, I mean, it was a tense finish when Rice, of all people, kicked Ben Davies. I know it was an accident, but I think he should have been a little bit more careful there. The referee didn't really see it as a penalty at the time, so VAR actually punished Arsenal on that occasion. And Son's never going to miss from the spot, is he? So yeah, that was incredibly good performance. I felt Spurs. I know they're getting turned over a bit at the moment, but I don't think, even though they're on a bad run of form, I don't think that will necessarily last. So I do feel they have the potential to get points from their home game against City. But as a lot of Arsenal fans will feel, When have Spurs ever done Arsenal a favour? Well, they are professionals. I think they won't be thinking of that. They'll just be thinking of winning the game. Let's hope so, at least. Of course, the start of that game against Spurs, well, there was a disallowed goal that Spurs had. Van de Ven ruled offside. It looked like he'd equalised. It was a great goal. I quite like Van de Ven, actually. If I had to take players from the Spurs team, Van de Ven would be one of them. The other one, obviously, Son. I'm not sure I'd take too many others. Those two. Kulusevski is a decent player, but he does dive a lot, I feel. And I was arguing with a Spurs fan at work who said, yeah, Spurs should have had another penalty. And I disagree, because really Kulusevski was just trying to outmuscle everyone, and then when it didn't work, fall into the floor. He tried it with Trossard, Tomiyasu, and in the end, that policy backfired, because when he did fall on the ground, which I didn't think it was a foul actually. Arsenal broke away and got their second goal through Saka, and Havertz was the guy feeding Saka. And of course, the first goal, I wouldn't call it a fluke. It was a decent corner from Saka, Højbjerg heading into his own net, so that was quite funny. In the end, of course, well, it wasn't in the end, but at the end of the first half, it was Havertz scoring, heading home a Trossard corner from close range. So Arsenal are absolutely amazing at dead ball situations this season. Scored a lot of goals. I think it's certainly the record for this season out of all the other teams. And yeah, given that Arsenal didn't actually buy a goal scorer, a lot of people said, "Don't you wish you bought Tony from Brentford?" And I was saying that at the time, but now I'm not so sure, because Tony's got a hip injury, and that can be career threatening. So I think Arsenal did do the right thing by not buying Ivan Tony. Sorry. I think that's with hindsight, but at the time I would have certainly snapped him up without a doubt. Or is the hip injury a fake injury? Who knows? We'll probably find out at the end of the season. So yeah, it's just been a good run of form for Arsenal, really. What with beating Chelsea 5-0. Yeah, and at the time I was still, because it was before the Ivan Toney injury was revealed, I was of course raving about the goals, but when you're relying on Ben White to come in to chip in with a brace, that shows you haven't got an out-and-out goal scorer. Jesus is not really, as I said, in form. Trossard certainly is. Havertz certainly is. But to me, they're attacking midfielders primarily. They can play as false nines, but that's exactly it. They're false nines. But the goals are coming in from all areas, and that's got to be good. Odegaard scored against Wolves away, and then Trossard. Maybe that goal away at Wolves was slightly fluky, but yeah, Arsenal doing everything right. So why shouldn't Arsenal win the league? Well, let's hope they do. Right, let's get on to the quiz now. Let's see how many of these questions you managed to get right. Who was the manager of Arsenal during the double winning season of 70-71? Of course, the answer was Bertie Mee. I don't think he had a lot of experience as a coach exactly. I can't remember how he worked his way up, but he was more like I always think of him as an admin man rather than a guy who was out there coaching the team. I think it was Don Howe, really, who deserves a lot of the credit for the way the team played back in those days. So I'm obviously not going to ask you what the final league position of Arsenal was in that season. We know it was first, which we hope it will be this season. Which Arsenal player was top scorer in the league? The answer was Ray Kennedy. A lot of you might have put John Radford because he was number 9. Kennedy was 10. Kennedy was an incredibly good footballer. I'm not sure how old he was at the time. He was pretty young, 19 or 20, I would imagine. So he was a product of the youth system, as was Charlie George. We'll mention him later. So what was the aggregate score when Ajax played in the Intercity in the Intercity Fairs Cup final? Well, the answer was 4-3, and well, it's, to be honest, this game is just a little bit before my time, and so I wasn't really aware of Arsenal's route to the final. But yeah, they had when you think how many games they had to play compared to now to get to a European final, not that many games. Played Glentoran of Northern Ireland, and Arsenal actually lost the first leg. Can you believe it? They lost 1-0 in Northern Ireland. Then they were basically getting away with playing well in one of the legs and not the other. So then it was Sporting Lisbon, I believe, of Portugal came up next, and they were dispatched 3-0. Then Rouen of France, that was tight, a 1-0 win in the home leg, put paid to them. I think Dinamo Bicau is Dynamo Bucharest. Well, that was convincing, 9-1 on aggregate. So then it was Ajax in the semi-final. So Ajax were a very, very good team in those days. I don't know if Johan Cruyff and Nayskins played in that game, and they had a Kroll as well at the back. I don't know if they played in that game, but Ajax went on to dominate European football for many, many years, not long after that. So to beat them, Arsenal lost the away leg, but won at home 3-0. So they're making a habit of winning 3-0 when they had to, this Arsenal team. And they did need to win 3-0 because on the 22nd of April 1970, Arsenal went to Anderlecht for the first leg of the Intercity Fairs Cup, and they lost it 3-1. And once again, it was that man, Ray Kennedy, who chipped in with the crucial goal, scoring in the 82nd minute. Arsenal were 3-0 down at the time. So Arsenal probably didn't realise how important that goal was at the time. And then the second leg, it was 3-0. 2 goals came in quick succession. Eddie Kelly got the first. John Radford equalised in terms of the aggregate score, putting Arsenal 2-0 ahead on the night. And then John Samuels was the guy who got the winning goal. So yeah, he played in both legs by the looks of it. So or did he? Did I double check that? I'm not sure I did. Well, he certainly played in the second leg. I can be absolutely certain of that. So yeah, there you are. So that's the answer to that particular question. Right. So this one's super easy. Which team did Arsenal defeat in the FA Cup final to secure the domestic double? The answer was Liverpool, of course. How many goals did Arsenal get in total in that season? Well, according to what I'm looking at right now, it was 71, and I've checked it, and it's correct. Oh, that's nice and easy. 71 goals in 71. League goals, that is. That's a lot of goals, really, for a team that, we always say 1-0 to the Arsenal, and that kind of came from that era when there were a lot of games that would finish 1-0. Who scored the winning goal for Arsenal in the cup final of 71? Of course, Charlie George, the iconic celebration laying on his back. In which round, this is just so ridiculously easy. In which round of the FA Cup did Arsenal face Liverpool in that season? Final, obviously. Who won the Football Writers Player of the Year? 71, Frank McClintock. Who did Arsenal defeat in the semi-finals of the Intercities Fairs Cup? As I mentioned before, it was Ajax. What was the name of the stadium where Arsenal used to play? Easy, Highbury. Which player captained the team during that season? Frank McClintock again. Now this one I didn't double check the answer here, but it doesn't really surprise me if it's true. But what was the scoreline when Arsenal played Leeds? When Arsenal played Leeds in the league. Obviously they would have played each other twice, but the answer I've got here is Arsenal won 1-0, so I think I'd better check that. Surely they couldn't have beaten Leeds twice 1-0. I very much doubt it. And the question doesn't say whether it's home or away. So Arsenal versus Leeds. If anyone has an answer, you can let me know right here and now. 1970. Obviously, 1-0 to the Arsenal or 1-0 to Leeds was very, very likely when these two teams met, because it was like a bulldozer meets a bulldozer, really. So actually, Arsenal drew with Leeds at home. It was a 0-0. It was a 0-0 result, so a goalless draw. Let's see when that was. I think it was quite near the end of the season, if I remember right. But Leeds were Arsenal's rivals, really, at that time. So, yeah. Oh, sorry, it wasn't near the end of the season at all. I totally lied. It was the 1st of September, 1970. Leeds came to Arsenal, obviously closed, what do they say, pulled the bus up, put in front of the goal, probably something like that. But Leeds were pretty good going forward as well. They wouldn't normally get a hatful of goals. And so, yeah, it's completely wrong. My answer that I gave you is completely wrong. So Arsenal actually lost away at Leeds, 26th of April 1971. They lost 1-0, not. So it wasn't a victory at all. So that was completely wrong. Anyway, that was one hell of a season, no mistake about that. So Arsenal didn't actually lose that many games. They lost to Huddersfield, believe it or not, away, Liverpool away, Derby away. So all away games. Stoke away, that was, I seem to remember that. Losing 5-0 at Stoke was pretty shocking. Felt upset about that. Chelsea away, that was another defeat, 2-1. So these were the games that were lost by Arsenal, every single one away from home. Okay, where were we? So, yeah, the answer was Arsenal were defeated at Leeds and drew at home. Who was Arsenal's goalkeeper? 1970-71, of course, Bob Wilson. Which player made most appearances? George Armstrong, no surprises there. The right winger. I mean, he could play on the left as well. How many clean sheets did Arsenal keep during that season? A lot. 21 is the answer. Which club, now I'm disputing this one, which club did Arsenal defeat in the quarter-final of the FA Cup? And the answer is, if we're going to take the quarter-final, it was actually Leicester after a replay, Leicester City. That was Leicester City. Arsenal-Leicester City was the first game I ever saw, Arsenal game, but not this particular game. So it was a 0-0 at Filbert Street, because that's what it used to be called. And then at Highbury, Arsenal won thanks to a Charlie George goal in front of 57,000 spectators. So, decent crowd there. And actually, the semi-final was against Stoke. That was very dramatic. Surprised there were no questions about that. Peter Storey got 2 goals. It looked like, if I remember right, it looked like Arsenal were going to lose that game, but they managed to get a last-minute goal. Yeah, Peter Storey from the spot, 90th minute. So they rescued that, and then in the replay in front of 62,500, then it was Arsenal, all Arsenal, 2-0. George Graham, and Ray Kennedy scoring the goals. So that meant playing Liverpool in the final, and Arsenal's winning goals already. We mentioned Charlie George, and then there was that mix-up, and some people say it was Eddie Kelly. I think he now gets the credit for that goal, but some people might say it was George Graham. It was a combination of the two, and it sort of rolled in. Anyway, a goal's a goal. So I'm not going to ask you the name of the trophy that Arsenal won in 1970, European trophy, which was called the Intercities Fairs Cup. But what's it called now? You might say. The answer, UEFA Europa League. Who scored the first goal in the FA Cup final of 71? The answer is, it wasn't an Arsenal player. It was Liverpool Steve Highway. It was a bit of a mess, actually. It was a near post cross, and some people put it down as an own goal. I think a Bob Wilson own goal, but he certainly didn't cover himself in glory at that moment. And finally, the last question is, what was the attendance for that final? Well, most finals in those days at Wembley got 100,000 spectators crammed in. So if you got all of those right, well done. I don't know if I would have done. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and let's hope it's not too long before the next one. And also let's hope that next time I come up with a podcast, Arsenal have either clinched the league or are very close to doing so. Until the next time, adios, amigos.